All right, guys. I don't know. I can't even explain it. It's the equipment that I have. I've upgraded my internet quality, my internet speed, and it has done whatever it's done. So they sent me new equipment, but it's not here yet, not till tomorrow. So apparently, due to me upgrading and me not having the proper equipment, this is the outcome, I guess. So let's try this again. I'm so sorry. I am truly sorry. Maybe someday I'll be able to stop randomly disappearing.
Where we see the illumination of the
Here we go.
infrared illuminator for the Nest lighting, which gave me the.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going to tell you like I thought I was telling people. I'm waiting on equipment that will be here tomorrow. My internet I upgraded my internet, and the equipment that I have is not the proper equipment for the upgraded internet that I selected. So that's the outcome of me not having the proper upgraded equipment. This is what it does every once in a while if it chooses to. So hopefully tomorrow that'll be solved, or not hopefully, it will be solved tomorrow when that new upgrade gets here, the upgraded equipment or whatever. So thank you so much for coming back. Thank you so much for following. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You guys truly are a blessing in disguise. All right, let's get back to it. Once again, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Thank you for coming back.
Reference for a known occurrence of a delivery, and that's where that package was left. So we know that would trigger that infrared illuminator.
Okay, very good. And if you will, please, as we see this delivery person exit the vehicle, walk around to the side porch area as you've described, if you can assist by using your pointer.
Certainly.
The surveillance footage, if it
kind of almost ghosted into the image because they are overlaying, showing two different moments in time, but that the illuminator is in fact operating both times, and we know where that delivery person dropped the package, so we know that's what triggers.
To get from the Hickses and Lanz's.
Good morning, Texas.
Good morning.
We were on the cross-examination, I believe, weren't we? I believe that's where we left off.
Have an occasion to go.
Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
Crime scene on the 18th.
To the residents?
The residents, right.
I don't believe I physically went on the property on the 18th. I don't recall.
When was the first time that you did go to the residence?
Unfortunately, I don't recall.
Okay. Would it have been in 2021, or would it have been later?
If in fact I did to the actual scene residence,
Yeah.
It would have been the 18th or the 19th.
Okay. The photographs that we were looking at, particularly, I'll just show you, this is Station did it 480, and sure that I think. State's Exhibit 480. This is the screenshot that you did from across the street, showing that there's a screen on the window that you're explaining to us.
Yes.
There was an issue there with being able to see as well because of the screen.
Certainly complicated the view, yes.
Did you ever go to the crime scene and look at exactly where these lights were associated with where we see on the video?
Yes, on the exterior to some degree. I wasn't even made aware of the case until the 18th. And it would have been either the 18th or 19th.
Okay. And the lights that we see come on in the back, are they associated with where the package was that you saw, or were they in a different place?
They were in a different place.
Okay. Even though we saw those same lights come on when the package was delivered. Right.
The back the back floodlights?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what area do those back floodlights cover? Do you know when they would come on? How close would you have to be to those floodlights for them to come on?
I did not trigger them during hours of darkness, but they were in a patio area, and there was a wall to the. If you're facing that patio area where these lights were positioned, there was as I recall, a patio area with a part of a wall to the residents here, and part of a wall to the right.
And do you know how long those lights would stay on once they're triggered?
I had counted various cycles of that, and it seemed to be really brief in some instances, as little as 10 seconds.
Okay. And I know sometimes in floodlights that I have, sometimes a dog will trigger them. Anything that might come in their path that there's movement.
There's potential, yes, for that.
So let's talk a little bit about the vehicle. I know that that you've got new equipment that you've gotten fairly recently to do these testing. Did you do the testing with this new equipment or with the old equipment that you purchased when you came back?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, because you kind of mentioned the vehicle and now you're referring to new equipment.
Well, we're testing the headlights. You want to see the V in the headlights?
Yeah.
You indicated that you had equipment that you purchased when you came back from being retired in Cobb County and purchasing that surveillance equipment.
No.
Is that something different?
You have, there's no new equipment for that purpose, and the equipment that I referred to was actually in 2002. 2001, they accepted a proposal. 2002, they bought it. It was long before I went to the technology-based crime unit.
Okay, so the Axon that you were talking about, that's not new equipment then?
It is the new company that purchased the smaller company, Input Ace.
Okay. So you didn't use this newer equipment. You used the equipment back in
None of this is equipment, it's software. It's software.
Okay.
But this is something that I would say we can see with the naked eye.
Okay.
That there's nothing that's doing anything to enhance that image. I picked up on what I believe was a signature visually, just simply watching the video play from both Verbena Drive and Delphinium Boulevard, those two residential surveillance systems. I believe I was seeing a headlight signature, and my interest was to, once we had the known vehicle of a person of interest to the case in our custody, I wanted those known images of what the headlights were casting. That there's no equipment other than cameras and ladders involved in that, and the surveillance systems that record them.
Well, that's pretty much just visual. You don't use any particular surveillance equipment or anything to enhance what you may see with the naked eye.
I do not recall, other than cropping the images for the PDF that I produced, other than cropping them just so visually they'd be about the same size in each example. No, I don't believe I did any enhancement. I prefer to call it clarification processes of adjusting brightness or contrast or luminance values.
When you are looking at a headlight signature, we'll just say 2018 Toyota. Does each 2018 Toyota have the same signature headlight?
I would say there's a potential for each one to have slightly different headlight signatures. And then all the different variables that come into play. Did a headlight burn out? Was it replaced with a lesser lumens output bulb? Was it replaced with a non-manufacturer produced bulb? Was there a front-end collision that may have changed the aim of a headlight? All those, and there are, as you and I can both imagine, millions of possibilities of what changes, because it's not like it used to be when you and I would take a screwdriver and make an adjustment to our headlights by literally running a screw in and out. It would change the pin. These are basically fixed, and what changes them are the bulbs, the lamps used, and any damage or other factors that will change the directionality and the output of a headlight.
And the only way that you would really know that would be to look at the bulb to see whether it may be the same bulb that was in the vehicle originally. If it was, then most of them would be the same V-shaped equipment.
Personally, I could care less about what bulb it is in there. I could care less about the lens. It's about the signature. It's about the signature cast upon the ground, on a roadway, on asphalt, either as the vehicle's traveling, as it's parked, and then recreating to the best of your ability the angles to capture a similar scene and see visually, does it compare? Is it comparable? And in this case, it was.
misunderstood. I thought you said it sometimes depended on the type of boat that you had, whether you had a front end collision, and all of these things kind of would go in being able to determine whether that V was the same, that maybe is the same signature on all 2018 Toyotas, correct?
In this case, I'm not concerned about all 2018 Toyotas. I'm literally concerned with one vehicle. And does that signature of that, no matter whose head that's in, no matter what lens is on, I'm not even concerned, did it ever get in a front end collision? Was there ever damage to it? I just know several nights earlier, it was casting a particular signature upon the ground. Is it still casting? Is that vehicle a known vehicle casting that signature such that I can then confidently say that it was a vehicle that traveled through that area at a time significant to the investigation?
So it wouldn't make any difference to you how many 2018 Toyotas there would be that had the V signature. You're just looking at that particular vehicle.
I'm literally looking at that particular vehicle in this kind of scenario when we have a known entity, a known vehicle to compare to.
Tried to write down all these time frames from the stamp. It appears as though that there are lights coming on the front porch at some point. I think at 21:31, you see a light on the back of the Hicks home. You recall?
Yes.
And then at 21:32, the light goes out.
I believe that would be generally accurate, yes.
And then at 21:32, the lights on the front porch come on. Correct.
If recollection serves, yes.
And you indicated that you can see movement during that time period. I think we saw some sort of person moving across the screen there from maybe the back area towards the front, past the truck.
Past the infrared, the Nest camera, and then eventually down the driveway toward the roadway.
And then at 21:37, you got lights on the front porch again, all right? Somewhere in that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe you may be referring to the similar time frame,
Okay.
a continuation of that time frame.
Well, the lights on the front porch aren't going to stay on other than a few seconds, according to what you said.
On the front porch?
Or do you know?
That's the back porch. The front porch, they stay on much longer, from what I reviewed.
How long do they stay on the front porch?
Younger. I didn't do a calculation per se, not like I did for the back, because the back seemed to be triggered and go out pretty quickly. So I did not do the same for the front, and there was no point of entry into the home that we were aware of related to this case on the front. So I did not do a calculation for the back. I'm sorry, for the front.
Okay, so you're saying that the lights are on from 21:32 to 21:37?
No, I'm not saying that necessarily. I don't recall, and it wasn't the focus of my interest.
And at 21:44:01, you see somebody walking up the street. Is that up the sidewalk in front of the bushes there?
I believe so. I'm unaware of the sidewalk, but there's shrubbery. The driveway meets the roadway. There's a shorter or narrow, I guess narrow is a better term, strip of grass that one crosses to pass onto the roadway.
Okay. It appears as though, from what I could tell, that that person was walking away from the home. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And then at 21:55, you got the floodlights that go on in the backyard again.
Yes.
Then at 22:10, you got the floodlights at the front door, front porch.
I don't recall. I do know the back are illuminated at 22:10.
Okay, so you don't remember whether the floodlights were on at 22:10?
In the back, they absolutely were. They pop on, and a person is seen moving from the residence toward the roadway.
Well, at 22:10:08, you got the back floodlights come on, but you don't recall the front coming on before?
I don't recall that, whether they did or not. My interest was in the back of the home.
Your knowledge, do you know who interviewed the driver for the package delivery?
I do not.
So your best estimate then of time of the murders was somewhere between 9:55 and 10:10. Is that right?
Yes.
I think that you indicated that you were able to see a person, but you were not able to determine what that person might be wearing or what they look like.
Yeah, that's correct. No identifiable, other than what appeared to be a human figure moving. Nothing identified.
And you indicated at one point that there had been some light that you saw was a reflection that may have been up towards the Lanz home. Could that be anything? Could it be back porch light or anything that came on?
I believe what you're, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe what you referred to is early in my testimony, I was talking about the Lanz vehicle arriving during the 21-20 hour frame, traveling past 5064 Verbena Drive, and then followed by two SUVs. And then the continuation, the compilation where the video then picks up from 5050 Verbena, and I indicated that you see light cast into a deeper area, right? And then about 8 seconds later, you begin to see the lighting for the vehicle, the first SUV that would have been behind the Lanz vehicle. And could that have been the Lanz vehicle pulling into 600 Delphinium Boulevard? Yes. Could it have been someone at the intersection that turned and did a U-turn in the four-way stop because they sit right on the corner? Yes. I'm not excluding all other possibilities.
So you're not saying, you don't know whether the Lanz vehicle or what you believe to be the Lanz vehicle pulled into their drive?
I believe it to be the Lanz vehicle. I believe the timing is accurate for it to have been the Lanz vehicle's lights shining into the trees and landscape prior to that first SUV that would have been behind the Lanz vehicle only seconds earlier, captured on the earlier camera footage. So I believe it to be the Lanz vehicle.
All right, thank you.
Well,
Thank you. Any agreement, any follow-up or redirect?
Nothing further, thank you.
All right. Ms. Whitney, excuse?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Can I have the attorney's appointment for me? State, you may call your next witness.
This time the state called Detective Ben Jackson.
That's the family right there. Probably her sisters and cousins.
You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the court on the issue now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Thank you. Please have a seat, and once seated, if you please state and spell your true and correct legal name for the record.
Sergeant Ben Jackson, BenJackson.
Thank you. You may proceed. Any comments?
Good morning. If you'll please tell the court how you're employed.
I am currently assigned to Crimes Against Persons Unit as the sergeant for the unit.
And how long have you been with the Crimes Against Persons Unit?
I was a detective in the Crimes Against Persons Unit for approximately 2 years before being promoted to sergeant, and have been reassigned to that unit as a sergeant since January of 2022.
And certification, which law enforcement agency?
Cobb County Police Department.
And prior to Crimes Against Persons, did you have previous law enforcement experience?
Yes, I was originally post-certified in 2006. I worked for the Georgia Tech Police Department for 1 year, then left law enforcement, was in full-time ministry for about 5.5 years before coming to the Cobb County Police Department in December of 2012.
So since 2012, you've been post-certified?
Yes.
Now, were you employed by the Cobb County Police Department in November of 2021?
Yes, sir. At that time, I was a detective in the Crimes Against Persons Unit.
So I want to jump to November 18, 2021. In what capacity did you work this case?
I was assigned as the second to assist Detective Standard in the homicide investigation.
Now, jumping in, at some point, did you interview Teresa and Scott Lanz?
Yes, sir. We interviewed them at the office on, I believe it was November the 19th.
Now, who is Teresa and Scott Lanz?
They're the father and mother of the suspect, Matthew Lanz.
Now, in the sequence of events, when did you interview them?
It was later in the evening on the 19th, so it was after we identified him as the suspect, before we executed the search warrant in Athens, Georgia.
Now, how did the Lanz, Teresa and Scott Lanz, get to the headquarters? If you remember.
I don't recall.
But at some point, they were at headquarters?
Yes, sir.
All right. And who interviewed them?
Detective Standard and I interviewed them at the office.
Now, at this time, the state's going to move to Integral Smart States Exhibit 466 as a part of stipulation number 8, and I can read that into the record.
Yes, please.
In full, stipulation number 8, statements of Scott and Teresa Lanz captured on Officer R. Jones' body camera contained in State Exhibit 460, and from their formal interview with Detectives Zachary Stanner and Ben Jackson contained in State Exhibit 466 are admissible. Defendant Matthew Lanz is waiving his right to confrontation regarding the statements made by Scott and Teresa Lanz, his parents. So at this time, I think it's a good time to take a break, Judge.
Yes, take it on the record. Attorney Barry, any objection?
Welcome in, guys. Welcome in.
Stipulated in
Appreciate you
stipulation
stopping by.
number 8, State Exhibit 466 is admitted, and we will
Hit that
take
like and
our
follow.
Property on the 18th. I don't recall.
What was the time that you did go to the residence?
Unfortunately, I don't recall.
Okay. Would it have been in 2021, or would it have been later?
If in fact I did, to the actual same residence,
Yeah.
I've never been more annoyed in my life with a company. I mean, how do you let somebody upgrade their internet and then, oh, it's going to fuck with your internet for 4 days until you get the upgraded equipment? Like, why upgrade it then? And why not wait until you get the equipment here, then upgrade it all at the same time? Like, this is really pissing me off. I'm sorry, once again. Here we go.
it would have been the 18th or the 19th.
The photographs that we were looking at, particularly, I'll just show you, this is the stage you did at 480, and sure that I think. State's Exhibit 480. This is the screenshot that you did from across the street, showing that there's a screen on the window that you're explaining to us.
Yes,
There was an issue there with being able to see as well because of the screen.
certainly complicated the view, yes.
Did you ever go to the crime scene and look at exactly where these lights were associated with where we see on the video?
Yes, on the exterior to some degree. I wasn't even made aware of the case until the 18th. And it would have been either the 18th or 19th.
And the lights that we see come on in the back, are they associated with where the package was that you saw, or were they in a different place?
They were in a different place.
Okay, even though we saw those same lights come on when the package was delivered. Right.
The back, the back floodlights?
Okay. So what area do those back floodlights cover? Do you know when they would come on? How close would you have to be to those floodlights for them to come on?
I did not trigger them during hours of darkness, but they were in a patio area, and there was a wall to the. If you're facing that patio area where these lights were positioned, there was as I recall, a patio area with a part of a wall to the residence here, and part of a wall to the right.
Okay. And do you know how long those lights would stay on once they're triggered?
I had counted various cycles of that, and it seemed to be really brief in some instances, as little as 10 seconds.
Okay. And I know sometimes in floodlights that I have, sometimes a dog will trigger them. Anything that might come in their path that there's movement. Fair to say?
There's potential, yes, for that.
So let's talk a little bit about the vehicle. I know that that you've got new equipment that you've gotten fairly recently to do these testing. Did you do the testing with this new equipment or with the old equipment that you purchased when you came back?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, because you kind of mentioned a vehicle and now you're referring to new equipment.
Well, we're testing the headlights. You want to see the V in the headlights?
Yeah.
You indicated that you had equipment that you purchased when you came back from being retired in Cobb County and purchasing that surveillance equipment.
No,
Is that something different?
you have, there's no new equipment for that purpose, and the equipment that I referred to was actually in 2002. 2001, they accepted a proposal. 2002, they bought it. It was long before I went to the technology-based crime unit.
Okay, so the Axon that you were talking about, that's not new equipment then?
It is the new company that purchased the smaller company, Input Ace.
So you didn't use this newer equipment, you used the equipment back in
None of this is any software. It's software.
Okay.
But this is something that I would say we can see with the naked eye.
Okay.
That there's nothing that's doing anything to enhance that image. I picked up on what I believe was a signature visually, just simply watching the video play from both Verbena Drive and Delphinium Boulevard, those two residential surveillance systems. I believe I was seeing a headlight signature, and my interest was to, once we had the known vehicle of a person of interest to the case in our custody, I wanted those known images of what the headlights were casting. That there's no equipment other than cameras and ladders involved in that and the surveillance systems that recorded.
Well, that's pretty much just visual. You don't use any particular surveillance equipment or anything to enhance what you may see with the naked eye.
I do not recall, other than cropping the images for the PDF that I produced, other than cropping them just so visually they'd be about the same size in each example. No, I don't believe I did any enhancement. I prefer to call it clarification processes of adjusting brightness or contrast or luminance values.
When you are looking at a headlight signature, we'll just say 2018 Toyota. Does each 2018 Toyota have the same signature headlight?
I would say there's a potential for each one to have slightly different headlight signatures. And then all the different variables that come into play. Did a headlight burn out? Was it replaced with a lesser lumens output bulb? Was it replaced with a non-manufacturer produced bulb? Was there a front-end collision that may have changed the aim of a headlight? All those, and there are, as you and I can both imagine, millions of possibilities of what changes. Because it's not like it used to be when you and I would take a screwdriver and make an adjustment to our headlights by literally running a screw in and out. It would change the pin. These are basically fixed, and what changes them are the bulbs, the lamps used, and any damage or other factors.
That was a straight up old man to old man reference right there. He's talking about adjusting the light bulb on the headlight of your car, adjusting your headlight by screwing the screw in and unscrewing it. I have no idea what he's talking about. Never even knew that was a thing. But I bet my dad knows. I'm going to go ask him when I'm done. Matter of fact, I'll text him right now and ask him. But it just made me laugh. I thought I'd point out to you guys.
Will change the directionality and the output of the headlight.
And the only way that you would really know that would be to look at the bulb to see whether it may be the same bulb that was in the vehicle originally. If it was, then most of them would be the same V-shaped equipment.
Personally, I could care less about what bulb it is in there. I could care less about the lens. It's about the signature. It's about the signature cast upon the ground, on a roadway, on asphalt, either as the vehicle's traveling, as it's parked, and then recreating.
Even your headlight has a signature.
Angles.
Crazy how many ways they can catch you nowadays.
Seen and see visually, does it compare? Is it comparable? And in this case, it was.
I'm glad my days are over of getting in trouble and trying to get away from the law, because they got way too much they can catch you with and catch you up on anymore. Everything listens, everything records. Everybody's got cameras and phones in their pocket.
In this case, I'm not concerned about all 2018 Toyotas. I'm literally concerned with one vehicle. And does that signature of that, no matter whose headlamps are in it, no matter what lens is on it, I'm not even concerned, did it ever get in a front-end collision? Was there ever damage to it? I just know several nights earlier, it was casting a particular signature upon the ground. Is it still casting? Is that vehicle, a known vehicle, casting that signature such that I can then confidently say that it was the vehicle that traveled through that area at a time significant to the investigation?
So it wouldn't make any difference to you how many 2018 Toyotas there would be that had the V signature. You're just looking at that particular vehicle.
I'm literally looking at that particular vehicle in this kind of scenario when we have a known entity, a known vehicle to compare to.
That's all I have. Watch.
I tried to write down all these time frames from the stamp. It appears as though that there are lights coming on the front porch at some point. I think at 21:31, you see a light on the back of the Hicks home. You recall?
Yes.
And then at 21:32, the light goes out.
I believe that would be generally accurate, yes.
And then at 21:32, the lights on the front porch come on. Correct.
If recollection serves, yes.
And you indicated that you can see movement during that time period. I think we saw some sort of person moving across the screen there from maybe the back area towards the front, past the truck.
Past the infrared, the Nest camera, and then eventually down the driveway. toward the roadway.
And then at 2137, you got lights on the front porch again, all right? Somewhere in that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe you may be referring to the similar time frame,
Okay.
a continuation of that time frame.
Well, the lights on the front porch aren't going to stay on other than a few seconds, according to what you said.
On the front porch?
Or do you know?
That's the back porch. The front porch, they stay on much longer, from what I reviewed.
How long do they stay on the front porch?
I didn't do a calculation per se, not like I did for the back, because the back seemed to be triggered and go out pretty quickly. So I did not do the same for the front, and there was no point of entry into the home that we were aware of related to this case on the front. So I did not do a calculation for the back. I'm sorry, for the front.
Okay, so you're saying that the lights are on from 2132 to 2137?
No, I'm not saying that necessarily. I don't recall, and it wasn't the focus of my interest.
And at 214401, you see somebody walking up the street. Is that up the sidewalk in front of the bushes there?
I believe so. I'm unaware of the sidewalk, but there's shrubbery. The driveway meets the roadway. There's a short or narrow, I guess narrow is a better term, strip of grass that one crosses to pass onto the roadway.
Okay, it appears as though, from what I could tell, that that person was walking away from the home, the next home, is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And then at 2155, you got the floodlights that go on in the backyard again.
Yes.
And then at 2210, you've got the floodlights at the front door, front porch.
I don't recall. I do know the back are illuminated at 2210.
Okay, so you don't remember whether the floodlights were on at 2210?
In the back, they absolutely were. They pop on, and a person is seen moving from the residence toward the roadway.
Well, 2210-08, you got the back floodlights come on, but you don't recall the front coming on before.
I don't recall that, whether they did or not. My interest was in the back of the home.
Your knowledge, do you know who interviewed the driver for the package delivery?
I do not.
So your best estimate then of time of the murders was somewhere between 9:55 and 10:10. Is that right?
Yes.
So a 15-minute window of when they were murdered.
I think that you indicated that you were able to see a person, but you were not able to determine what that person might be wearing or what they look like.
Yeah, that's correct. No identifiable, other than what appeared to be a human figure moving. Nothing identifiable.
And you indicated at one point that there had been some light that you saw was a reflection that may have been up towards the Lanz home. Could that be anything? Could it be back porch light or anything came on?
I believe what you're, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe what you're referring to is early in my testimony, I was talking about the Lanz vehicle arriving during the 21-20 hour frame, traveling past 5064 Verbena Drive, and then followed by two SUVs. And then the continuation, the compilation where the video then picks up from 5050 Verbena. And I indicated that you see light cast into a deeper area, right? And then about 8 seconds later, you begin to see the lighting for the vehicle, the first SUV that would have been behind the Lanz vehicle. And could that have been the Lanz vehicle pulling into 600 Delphinium Boulevard? Yes. Could it have been someone at the intersection that turned and did a U-turn in the four-way stop because they sit right on the corner? Yes. I'm not excluding all other possibilities.
So you're not saying, you don't know whether the Lanz vehicle or what you believe to be the Lanz vehicle put into their drive?
I believe it to be the Lanz vehicle. I believe the timing is accurate for it to have been the Lanz vehicle's lights shining into the trees and landscape prior to that first SUV that would have been behind the Lanz vehicle only seconds earlier, captured on the earlier camera footage. So I believe it to be the Lanz vehicle.
right, thank you.
Well,
Nothing further, Judge.
Thank you. Any agreement needed, follow-up or redirect?
Nothing further, thank you.
All right, Ms. Hicks, excuse?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Now the attorney's approach for me.
Detective Glenn Jackson.
All right, state, you may call your next witness.
This time to state call Detective Glenn Jackson.
Looks like we're going to be going on a break here real soon.
You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the court on the issue now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Thank you. Please have a seat, and once seated, if you please state and spell your true and correct legal name for the record.
Sergeant Ben Jackson, BNJACKSON.
Thank you. You may proceed. Any comments?
Good morning. If you'll please tell the court how you're employed.
I am currently assigned to Crimes Against Persons Unit as the sergeant for the unit.
And how long have you been with the Crimes Against Persons Unit?
I was a detective in the Crimes Against Persons Unit for approximately 2 years before being promoted to sergeant, and have been reassigned to that unit as a sergeant since January of 2022.
And certification, which law enforcement agency?
Cobb County Police Department.
And prior to Crimes Against Persons,
County
did you
Police
have
Department.
previous law enforcement experience?
Yes, I was originally post-certified in 2006. I worked for the Georgia Tech Police Department for 1 year, then left law enforcement, was in full-time ministry for about 5.5 years before coming to the Cobb County Police Department in December of 2012.
So since 2012, you've been post-certified?
Yes, sir.
Now, were you employed by the Cobb County Police Department in November of 2021?
Yes, sir. At that time, I was a detective in the Crimes Against Persons Unit.
So I want to jump to November 18, 2021. In what capacity did you work this case?
I was assigned as the second to assist Detective Standard in the homicide investigation.
Now, jumping in, at some point, did you interview Teresa and Scott Lanz?
Yes, sir. We interviewed them at the office on, I believe it was November the 19th.
Now, who is Teresa and Scott Lanz?
They're the father and mother of the suspect, Matthew Lanz.
Now, in the sequence of events, when did you interview them?
It was later in the evening on the 19th, so it was after.
All right. And who interviewed them?
Detective Standard and I interviewed them at the office.
I think we already heard all
Now, this
this.
time, the state's going to move to Integral Smart States Exhibit 466 as it's a part of stipulation number 8, and I can read that.
Is that when I had my internet debacle?
In full, stipulation number 8, statements of Scott and Teresa Lanz captured on Officer R. Jones' body camera contained in State's Exhibit 460, and from their formal interview with Detective Zachary Stanner and Ben Jackson contained in State's Exhibit 466 are admissible. Defendant Matthew Lanz is waiving his right to confrontation regarding the statements made by Scott and Teresa Lanz, his parents. So at this time, I think it's a good time to take a break, Judge.
Yes, they go to the record. Attorney Barry, any objection?
No, Judge.
Okay. As stipulated in stipulation number 8, State Exhibit 466 is admitted, and we will take our lunch break at this time. So everyone will be back at 1:30 p.m. Courtroom will be open about 1:15. Just want to remind everybody that chewing gum is prohibited in the courtroom as well. So just want to remind everybody there should be no chewing gum in the courtroom during the course of the proceedings. Everyone enjoy lunch, and I'll see you all back at 1:30.
All right, I'll keep an eye on it. I'm going to be back.
False alarm, I think.
Okay, all right. False alarm. Property management.
No, y'all talk about it. Must be loud. Might lose your battery in your pocket. They died today too. Sometimes when they cut the lights out, I thought the lights went out. They didn't remember it going on. Yeah.
Yeah, we can take a break. Yeah.
The substance. I gave you. I you know what? I went and got my car. She just stopped and got me on the main interview. Really, I really don't drink one. He said, I've been working Saturday, Saturday, and take this to the hospital. But I'm getting to drink my wine. And you gotta sit in one spot for a long period of time. I've been training for sitting for a while.
Tony, 60 seconds.
Superior Court is back in session.
Thank you. Everyone, please be seated for me. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I am Judge Sonia Brown, the presiding judge for this criminal jury trial for the state of Georgia versus Matthew Scott Lanz, case number 229000922. Again, present in the open courtroom of the court, the clerk, the court reporter, Mr. Lanz, he's represented by Attorney Jimmy Berry, and the state is represented by Assistant District Attorneys Green and Horowitz. Anything we need to put on the record before we proceed?
Just one thing, Judge, after this witness, they wanted to put up, a witness, he took swabs, I think it was you that took swabs. When the state finishes, there's about a 5-minute video that I have not seen.
Okay.
If we could take 5 minutes and let you view that to see if we can consent to it.
Sure, of course,
Right, thank
of
you.
course. Anything else?
No, Judge.
All right, you may proceed, Attorney Horowitz.
And Judge, right before the break, I had admitted State's Exhibit 466,
66.
which is an interview with Scott and Teresa Lanz. So I would ask the public at this time,
You may.
and I'm ready.
Do you all need the lights turned
No.
off? Okay.
And before Detective, you're still under oath. Before I press play on this, for the record, can you just indicate what the date is of this interview and time?
It's November the 19th, 2021 at 9:12 p.m.
And for the record, who is in this video before it starts playing?
That's Matthew Lanz's parents, Scott and Teresa Lanz.
Who's on the right, who's on the left?
Teresa's on the left and Scott is on the right.
Now, for the record, I'm going to start State Exhibit 466 at 9:12 and 50 seconds p.m.
Matthew was found in people's houses down in Sandy Springs. When an officer showed up, he was in someone's house. They pulled out a knife and he stabbed Sandy Springs officer. Sandy Springs officer is expected to survive. Matthew was shot at least twice, but he's fine. He was treated at a hospital. He's expected to make a full recovery. But I just want to let you know that now, okay? You want me to give him a minute and step out? Go ahead, happened, and not getting into someone's home with a weapon and hurt another police officer, it obviously raises our suspicion and makes us want to figure it out. Yeah, there it is.
Do you have ID on him, his name?
Yeah, we reviewed the body cameras and all that stuff. He was in someone's house, one house down there in Sandy Springs. We showed up and kind of popped up, and he put that knife and stabbed off the back of the head. He has a gun. Well, we just saw him around the house. We went down there and meet with the Sandy Springs detectives to try to figure out what was going on. Like I said, if you need a minute to talk among yourself, or you just need 5 to 10 minutes before.
Well, they came to our house, treated me like a criminal. They brought me outside and put my hands behind my back. They ripped me.
The police that came to your house?
Yes. Do you have a weapon?
That's it. I don't know that, let's see it that way. No one just thinks you're a criminal. But we also don't know who's inside or what, especially when you're not an officer, you just got stabbed. They're just very extra careful about how they proceed with that.
And you said he's okay.
He is okay. He went to the hospital. He treated, he got his, the officer's fine. The officer's good.
Officer's still in the hospital, but he's safe and survived. Matthew is released from the hospital. He's gonna be fine. He got shot. Matthew got shot.
Yeah, the police officer on scene who was there, did fire himself and he was shot. Like I said, we weren't there. I can't tell you there a little bit of detail because we were very proud of this having the same strength. We could go down there and try to figure out, okay, what happened this morning, that information we have is wrong with that. I'm sure they still have a lot of work to do as far as the investigation goes. But we were down there at this house with this happened this morning.
Do you
You
have
had a suspicion about Matthew prior to that? So, the house where that bill was at, we understand there was a connection there with your other son.
Yes.
Okay. We heard about that incident, okay? We heard that there was a brother. We didn't really know who Matthew was at that time. We were investigating this double homicide. But we knew there was another son of yours. And then this morning, we got a call that when the same street found out who Matthew was and where he lived in relation to his double homicide happened, they called us and said, hey, you might want to, know about this, because how close it was now, even someone else's home, and how you armed with a weapon and stabbed the officer. So obviously, when we're investigating homicide, that is something we have to follow up on. We have to look into that aspect, okay? So that's how Detective Jackson and I ended up having the
How could he be mentally disturbed? He's been seeing a psychiatrist since the thing that happened with Austin because we were concerned they were so close. And we went together at first.
And honestly, we've never met, I've never met Matthew, I've never had any communication with Matthew prior. I knew nothing about who Matthew was, what his life is, like that, just to look at. I never even knew anything about whatever happened at that house with your other son previously until yesterday. Literally, this is the first time this has come to light to me. So that's why, obviously, we're here. Another thing that concerned us was that the firearm that we had, and I guess from what we're being told, we may have taken from him for whatever for and we appreciate that.
We told him that, after what happened to Austin, he could not have any guns.
We back up once down. When they were younger, we bought, I don't remember if I bought or who bought them, but we have one left. And we used to go to the range and shoot the long gun, I don't remember what it is. And then they purchased 2 handguns, separate, like 4 together or something. I never really got a true story out of that. And after Austin incident, we found
We didn't even know they were in the house.
we never had any idea. And that's, let me rephrase this a little bit. When I said, like, we never met before. I never knew anything about Matthew, I never knew anything about your son. We're not here to judge Matthew. You have something you guys, we try to get answers. We want to use it as self-background. That don't matter what we're going through now, locked up at a safe. We bought a safe after we took him away. Put him in a safe, hid him in the closet, back but I'm just not a gun person at all. I saw him every week. He'd come home when I go to Athens, and we'd like, oh, we got dinner, and I knew it was gonna be tough with his brother's loss. We knew he had something going on in his head that we couldn't figure out. We couldn't figure out Austin either. We thought we were doing the right thing. I don't know if we will, but Matthew wasn't right. We were gonna pull him out of his, we were gonna bring him back home, let him go local, be around him more, and he didn't want to do that. He said, I'm fine. So he's got some issues. After all the gun malarkey, he went out and bought a gun. He told us October.
Yeah, what we didn't know this until yesterday.
Well, we went to see him. There was a gun in the car. We told him, that was this. Where did you get this? I bought it at Athens gun store.
Gun range.
Whatever, I don't remember. And I said, well, you can't have this. He said, Dad, it's personal property, it's mine, he's defiant, he doesn't like law, he doesn't like rules.
He needs to protect himself. For some reason,
There's a fear that somebody's out to get him.
with this. He said, that's what he says every time we say, why do you think you need something to protect yourself? Because everybody should have something to protect themselves.
We have guns up, private hands, we never had them.
We're not going to, we can't complicate.
I took a gun back to our house, and I just showed that old post where they were listening more than how the fact was. And, you know, there's a connection, my guess is, I don't know.
But, I mean, the reason we went to Athens yesterday, I went first, because after we found out about the neighbors, I started trying to call him, you know, to tell him before he saw it or heard it, and he wasn't answering his phone. And I continued to text him and call him.
Is it right now, going straight to voicemail, or?
I think that it was showing blue yesterday. Today it's been showing green. I think I texted him twice and called him maybe a couple of times. And it was just green, so I assumed it was either dead or off. But yesterday it was blue. And so I probably got there about 2:30 or so, and I unlocked the door, and the chain was on. And I was, you know, yelling through the door, because I could see his bedroom door was closed. And I kept saying, Matthew, you know, come to the door. And I waited and waited. And so I kept trying to push the chain just to break it. And about the time that I finally got it to unscrew out of the wall, he walked out of his bedroom. And the gun was right by the bed. And I said, what is this? He said, well, I thought somebody was breaking into the apartment. And I said, well, why would you think that? I was screaming, Matthew's mom. And, you know, this is 2:30 in the afternoon, and he's in a nap sleep in his bed when he's supposed to be in class.
You all have a gun. I haven't been here. If you're a gun, that's a gun. You're, you know, sure they're now, everything I have, I specifically follow exactly where I put it. Like I said, I really don't not have any secrets.
But that is why we were there yesterday, because I was concerned that I couldn't get in touch with him, and I wanted to tell him about what happened.
Did you have any suspicions?
I had there was no barking Wednesday night or whenever that occurred. Was Wednesday night? Yes. Wednesday night, my dogs bark at everything. I mean, they bark when I go outside, I can't find anything. we didn't hear a sound. And so I have no idea what happened. If he was there, he was not in the house.
Not in our house.
Not in our house.
No, not just mine, that's just information. When you heard about what happened to you, that began yourself, is there any suspicion that he is involved?
I would never. I mean, we've never even met the new people. Never even met them. And Matthew knew that the other people moved out long ago. It never occurred to me that he had anything to do with this.
The reason we asked, when we talked to Matthew, he said that you asked him if he killed neighbors.
Well,
Here's, let me back up. I speak to him pretty regularly, trying to keep the spirits up, let him know I'm coming, we're gonna do something, blah, blah, blah. He called me Tuesday night. I spoke to him Tuesday night. How you doing, buddy? Everything okay? School? What are you doing? He said, I was at the gas station filling up my car. Filling up his car. And he was going to come home with his computer. And I said, great, you pick me up at the airport tomorrow, which was Wednesday night. Wednesday. Wednesday, I talked to him. Pick me up at the airport at 6 o'clock. Yes. He said the meeting was going home. She knew nothing about him being home. He never came in the house. If he came home, he didn't unlock the doors. We don't even know if he ever came home. He told us that he went home, but never went inside the house. That's exactly what he told us, and that's what I said. The next day, when this occurred, I said, Teresa, I'm just nervous. Matthew told me he was coming home. Maybe he didn't come home, but we ought to call and see what's up with him. You could have seen the department. Yeah. You heard somebody that was picking up.
I tried to get him to come back home with me, and he said, no, I don't need to come home.
His placement.
Yes.
You had it for a while.
Yeah, yes, it was in August.
Like I said, you've been over there multiple times.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
How does it usually happen? Is it neat and orderly, or is it state of chaos?
No, it's always very neat and clean and orderly.
When you saw him, I guess that was Thursday, right? When you saw him Thursday, was he drunk? Was he?
He was not drunk.
Out of it, was he saying weird things? He always says weird things. So he would say weird things. Lately, he was just really good. How much he said, he was just really.
When he got up at 2:30 in the afternoon, you could tell he had been sleeping very hard because, his eyes were swollen and he was kind of disoriented at first. And I said, what are you doing in bed? Why aren't you in class? And he said, I was just really tired. And I said, why are you so tired? And I can't remember what he said. But I probably said, Daddy said you were coming home. I said, well, you weren't at home. I said, what is going on? And at first he told me that he came in the house. And I said, there's no way he came in the house because the dogs would bark and flip out. I said, there's no way you were inside our house. And I said, and we have a thing that we latch and lock it. And I said, yeah. I said, how could you have gotten in? And then later he said, no, I didn't come in. And so I didn't really believe that he actually was anywhere in the vicinity. And that's when I said, of course, I saw the gun and we had that conversation. And I said, did you have anything to do with what happened to the neighbors? And that's when I told him, what happened to the neighbors. He didn't respond immediately. Like, oh my God, are you kidding me? talking, more clearly.
Did he ever give you actual yes or no response about asking that question?
He said, I did not murder anybody.
So other than him kind of sleeping in, like, is that unusual from the street till 30 years now? We're watching him on the weekend, we see Saturday night classes going. How about when you say figure out the weekend, you see that's what 2:30?
Yeah. Not that late, no.
So, it's a little unusual from the sleep that late. You look tired, you look up, everything in the car seems normal.
Yeah.
Who actually did the picture? You wouldn't hear from her, that's why Teresa called me today. I said, get Matthew in the car, bring him to our house. And he refused to go home. That's when she called me and said, I'm here, blah, 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 he's off his rocker. I'm going to have everybody take him from the airport, you go. So I went and felt the same thing he talked about, and asked point blank, were you involved? And it was not a yes or no, it was all answers that really made no sense. And if you talk to them long enough, somebody has, they may get a sense of these arrogant. So we said, let's go. You're going, Mom's going, with Ryan, because she picked me up, and I'll drive you and I. He said, Dad, I want to stay here. I said, why? Why would you want to come home? You were going to come home last night. You did. He said, I just want to stay, I got classes, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay. But I'm taking it up. And he went and got it. And said, Dad, possession is possession. I'm the owner. You can't do this to me. Blah, blah, blah. And I go, give her a flip. And I'm taking the gun. You can have bullets, but I'm taking the freaking gun. And it bothered me.
Well, no, he said you should take the bullet too. He told you should take the bullet too.
I just wanted the gun. I took his bullets. I can't use them. I'm going to take it right. I'm not a voice, but I was. What I thought was, where you were going to shoot himself. Or somebody else. No, I know you're not. I don't know. That's terrible to think. It's terrible to say, but his mindset was completely.
But you would think if his psychiatrist that he's been seeing every 2 weeks because we wanted him to continue to meet with him, because of what happened to Austin. Because he said, we asked him, would you like to continue to go? And he said, yeah, it'd be good for me. Maybe because he's 22 years old, that he can't tell us anything. I don't know.
I know you said you had a absolutely. Do you have any idea what kind of tennis? But you know what color it was? Black. Did it look like kind of like what I said? Is that block? This is, on the block. Because the other two guys we have are blocks. This one was, looked at it. It was shaped like that same size.
But the holster's not that big.
Okay.
It's just about that wide.
It's okay. I just 88, 99 caliber. I was just curious. So he had the bullets at his house. Yes. Did you ever see the bullets? Yes. Can you describe those to me? They were about big. Yeah. If I use the word casing, showcase. What color was the showcase? Gold. The showcase was gold. Do you have any other camera that house or anything like that? Not the, because the gun and the ammo was in his drawer. It was on the floor next to his bed. It was
When I got there.
after 3 hours, he put it in his little drawer box. Do you have any other magazines there?
Yeah, he has two. One on the side and one in it. Well, it was not in it, it was just kind of hanging out.
Does it have the same ammo in it? That's about, yeah, I think it was the same. But I said, how many are in these? And he said,
middle.
Now, I know you said you've seen a psychiatrist. Did he actually think diagnosed?
I mean, I told the psychiatrist that, you know, I thought that he was either bipolar or schizophrenic, you know, of the episodes that we've seen over the last few years.
So 7 to 8 years now.
About two and a half.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think it up. Every time it's like that.
Yeah.
You don't have the right words on the town. So a couple years.
Yeah.
So like high school years?
No, he was always an excellent straight A student, went to magnet school at Kennesaw Mountain, athlete, played lacrosse, never got in trouble, never drank, never, you know, it was the good crowd kids. When he went to Georgia, I wanted him to, get a fraternity to help him, because he was kind of a geek, you know, he was in computer lab at school, and I just thought it would help him socially at Georgia. And you know, I was sitting in his dorm or apartment all day on the computer. So I said, you know, I think it will help you socially, you'll really enjoy it. My daughter went down to the store and loved it. And so I think that was the beginning of the end. Of course, he got in there and started drinking and smoking, and Lord only knows what else those guys do. And, you know, I think he started smoking pot. He had never smoked pot before. And the kind of crap that those kids get now, I don't know what's in it, but it's not the kind of pot from way back when. And so we started seeing, you know, his grades started plummeting after the first semester, and behavior, yes.
Did he struggle at school this time? Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, he's been struggling ever since.
Yeah, they were doing something out of some sort, you know, probably nervous, at the fraternity house, and it got him way off track, I think, and he went up and, again, you know, had something the other night.
Yes, it has not been on heavy in him now.
And the counselor, when he went around, people freaked out,
He's
and,
paranoid.
you know, he was,
So,
he had trouble with that, yeah, he get arrested.
He get arrested.
He was, he's on probation, and he had 2 more months.
well, he got, had to go, it was on, their fraternity house was on school campus, not off campus. So when they contacted the, fraternity council to tell them what had happened, they in turn contacted the school. So then the school board called me and said, you know, I'm calling to let you know there was an incident at his fraternity house. He is on his way home, and, so we got an attorney to get him back in school, because they wanted to keep him out like 2 semesters, like a whole year. And we just felt like, you know, the kid's never been in trouble. He got so high, he didn't know what he was doing. He needs a second chance, because he's just a great student, great kid.
But it was hard, it was Cobb County police.
Yeah, so I drove him to the police station and turned himself in. Because of the time. That's what the attorney recommended.
And do you think that incident was, because you got too high, or was
Yeah.
strong stuff, or do you think that was the beginning of the?
I think he was smoking a tremendous amount of pot at that time. And I think that was the beginning of all these episodes. And, we didn't know this, but another episode occurred before that, when he was living in a dorm. They said he was running through the dorm and banged his head against the wall when he was real high one time. And, the people that come to check Yeah, but they didn't ever notify us because they didn't seem to think.
Yeah, we got there. I'd say the same. He quit smoking because he was on, yeah, to do weekly work,
We had to.
work every Sunday went to the police station. So I think he was straight for a period of time, and then once he completed that, kind of slid back to the old days. Was he ever on like an academic probation for that stuff? Yeah, so struggling in school, but still maintaining grades. He wouldn't tell us.
Well.
He's become really defiant, right, really.
He
I think he'll, go ahead.
He came home, you know, when it happened in the fall of his sophomore year, that's when that happened, like in October at the fraternity. And so he stayed home through, did he start back the spring? Oh yeah, that's when COVID hit, so he had to stay home. He was allowed to go back to school and take classes, but he had to do it online because when COVID hit. So he was home that whole year, and then that summer, and then this, is his junior year, and so he went back. Well, we got an apartment in April, because he couldn't find any community service in Cobb County for his program. Yeah.
So he was full of scholarship for 2 quarters. Came out of Kennesaw High School with a 4 point something, and went to Georgia and had a 3.6 and a 3.5, and joined the fraternity and all of that. And my guess is today, he had one good quarter, because we said you gotta straighten up, we're paying a lot of money, and I think this quarter is what we is worse than major.
It was engineering, and he switched it to, cognitive science.
Which again is,
It's a new major, I think, at Georgia, but,
if bullet matches, he's not. I'll be honest with you, we will be testing. We will be testing it. I don't have the results of that right this second, but the process will be, I know,
do you know how many times the people have? Both of them each multiple.
you guys know where in the house bodies were?
I talked to the grandparents down the street briefly, and they told me that the authorities told them they were sitting on the sofa. They were found sitting on the sofa.
You know what room they were in?
I'm assuming that must be their den.
Yeah, war room.
You ever
tell him what room they were?
All the time.
All I want to know is was he involved, yes.
Another word,
And I know you say you doing strange things, seeing strange things. There's something specific that's kind of like a repetitive behavior with him, whether he be presence or does he paranoid about a specific thing, or there's something specific. It takes on
having to have a weapon to protect himself, especially since what happened to Austin.
Is this like a everyday thing, or is it kind of comes and goes, or he has good weeks and bad weeks, or as far as whatever's going on for him?
Well, when he came home and he asked to see where the guns were, I was the only one that knew where the key was. And so Daddy, Scott said, I don't know where the key is, but I will get Mom to go get it, and I will show you where the guns are that safe, and they're put away, and they'll be here for whenever. And so I always got the key, and, unlocked it. He came in, and he and Scott sat there, and he showed them, that everything was in the safe, and
No, you can't take it. Just lock back up, and I'll be here when we think it's time to do something with it. So he's pretty big on protecting himself. Did he ever express anything of why he needed protection? Like a specific threat that he thought was? I think in college there were folks out to get him. And I think it was on the devilish, demonic side of his mind that he was hearing things, seeing things, believing things that weren't true, that led him to believe, tell me somebody's gonna come get me. I don't know.
yes, one day when I was in Athens, he drove me past this temple that he said were devil worshippers. Because he said he was sitting outside one night, and he heard a woman or somebody scream to the top of their lungs. And we said, where do you think that was coming from? He said, I think it was coming from the demonic temple.
It was amazing. He was on the sidewalks, right? That's what it was. He drove me to it. I said, are you kidding me? He told me that on the phone when I was in D.C. And the next time I saw him, said, tell me where all this happened. And it was 3 to a mile from his house. And I said, something doesn't make sense. If you scream as loud as you can at that place, there's no way you're back at your place. So I was that in his mind? I believed it. He believes things that I don't think would ever have heard from. I don't know that. For me, 3 months ago, yeah. Did he ever say anything about that house that happened, even before the house that happened? Did they ever say they lived in their house and talk about the house? Yeah, the previous people who lived there.
When that was all going on with Austin, I would ask him, I would say, do you see any of this that Austin thinks he sees and that's going on? Have you ever seen them flashing lights at Austin? He said, I've seen the lights. And he said, I think that one or both of them are messing with Austin. He said, I've never seen them in person. He said, but, I think that they are messing with Austin.
So, did Austin have a fixation on that house?
Well, that is,
He was putting things in the mailboxes. He believed that they were going in that bathroom and posing for him and turning the lights on and off and shining the laser in our house. And just things that aren't normal, right? And God forbid, we did everything we could for Austin, and he had similar issues with the dark side. It's all I can say. But living in the real world. Now, I know you said that. You said, yes, I saw that. And the lights over there, I think they were messing with Austin and stuff. Did he say anything about that house recently?
No, haven't mentioned the house. Not at all.
Because I purposely, they sold their house a month after.
They sold their house.
After lockdown.
Yeah. And the people that moved in,
September.
maybe somewhere around that
So I made a point to tell him that those people, the old people are gone, and new people are moved in that house. Because Matt knows about the light.
He did?
About the previous owners messing with Austin. Like I said, I was very familiar with what happened with Austin and that house prior. sat in the car for like 15 minutes, took like an hour and a half, essentially. Walked around the backyard, smoked a cigarette, kind of hanging out there for a little bit. And they said,
And did he say he came in the house?
he said he never went here.
Why would he tell us that he came in our house?
He said he got a bad feeling, took a bad feeling in the air. And then that spooked him. But the fixation of the license, but we were trying to kind of understand what he meant by that. Quite often,
He was saying that he saw flashing lights in the backyard.
that saw like working his peripheral.
Well, I was trying to figure out if he was really there, because I said, were there any lights on in the house behind us, if you were here? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, were they on upstairs or downstairs? Because they left, I think, the lights on, it wasn't everything exactly like we found it. And from what I've seen, it's the downstairs lights that are on, not the upstairs. And he said, he used that term, those demonic ones. And I said, what? And he said, those demonic ones.
So he said this that happened, or
Yeah.
after this happened?
Yes,
So he told you, you're going to cross the demonic place.
yes. And I said,
Why would he? What's the point in telling you about the Christmas lights? No, he didn't tell us about the Christmas lights, I'm telling you that. When we're talking about flashing lights and stuff, the house just happened to have a flashing light. So that was something we were thinking like,
He was just flashing lights.
we were trying to think,
Inside the house, and the flashing Christmas tree.
yeah. And he called it the demonic lights to me. And that's why I didn't believe he was really there. Honest to God, I just believe he was just not here. I said, after you came home and you said you came in the house, the dogs were heard you, the dogs were barked, the light, we have one of those lights that automatically comes on when you walk in. So I went home, I'm a very light sleeper. I said, there's no way you were inside our house. And he said, yeah, you're right, I didn't come in the house.
yeah, I believe him.
So, one minute he told me one thing and the next minute he told me another, so I just didn't know what to believe. And that's when I probably said, did you have anything to do with those people?
Did you know he was up in Metro Atlanta?
Oh, I had no idea.
Did you know he was up in Metro Atlanta today?
No.
Did you think he was still in Atlanta? Yeah, okay. I didn't know if he could have come back.
No, I'm not.
Or just, yeah, did you think he was still in Atlanta?
Yes, because we said when we left, buddy, if you stay here, you got to go to class. Don't feel online, go in person. And he said, I am. So I texted him this morning tonight, I thought his classes were 11, and said, you up? And he didn't respond. And then I tried calling him, and he just went straight to voicemail. And I thought, oh gosh, he's still asleep. He did not get up. And so I called him again at some point, and it went straight to voicemail again. And so I told Scott, I said, I guess we need to go back tomorrow and see what in the world's going on.
I just wasn't sure if he called you today.
No. We told him that if he didn't come home with us last night, just to stay and come home Tuesday when classes were over. But he never said any other negative things about that house. Once that was all over and done, and he said something to me, I don't know. he said something like, no, I hold a grudge.
And when you explain to them, hey, the previous residents don't live here anymore, he was saying that it seemed like he understood that.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
It wasn't just a point in time conversation, it was a conversation about a lot of things. We were on the golf course, I don't remember when or where, he was always needed that, he know everything you do, and he know everything, right? Matthew was always one that needed information, so he knew what we were doing, he knew if we were going on vacation, if we were gonna do this and that.
But it was in the newspaper, and he knew all the newspaper articles that the guy had moved out the week before Austin broke in there. So he knew that no one was living there. And then the guy put in the media that the girl had moved out way back in October. And we didn't know that. We thought they were both there that whole time.
So it never seemed like he forgot that you had that conversation, and forgot that they.
No.
There was no bad reason to have another conversation.
I mean, there was a retail line when we were, he knew that, it was for sale. And he knew that the guy had moved out.
He doesn't have a birthday, does he?
No.
Is that house in the park?
In the park.
Is it all here?
All cameras.
So that whole park, is pretty nice. Different than this. So please tell us, turkey, a couple,
No.
freshman friend, it was a great kid. Free guy, went to Kennesaw Mountain, right?
Yeah.
And as a freshman, they roomed together. Great kid, he still keeps in touch with him. He had a fraternity incidents, and he got decommissioned or de-pledged. So I don't think he has much conversation with them. I don't think he has a lot of friends.
I asked him last night,
Quiet guy, he's a loner. He's just not research.
but he wasn't
I
all
like
right.
me, as far as, as an adult, and more.
But he never, I don't think he ever, got past the fraternity incident. Socially, I think that, the fraternity told all the fraternity brothers not having to do with him. And I think, that was a huge,
435 North Church Street. Apartment 4. Apartment 4. Yeah, it's 435 Church Street. Yeah, it's Adams, 435 North Church Street. Apartment 4. Yeah, he is very orderly. He does his laundry regularly, it's clean, there's not trash everywhere. He used to cook himself some food, he's now gone off on a little different tangent. Doesn't feel like he's eating. Him and, Austin Christopher.
yeah. I mean, they were home together for almost 2 years, one night he had to come home his sophomore year. And, Austin was there, all that time. And then Matthew was home until about April.
Did he take it pretty hard afterwards?
We all did.
And I can't, so, that would be good to sympathize with you. We were trying to understand what Matt's mindset was after.
Yeah.
He was too hard for a month, few weeks or a month. That's why every weekend I would go do something with him. Austin, August, it was always time.
He had a breakdown, on the way home from Virginia, we had to go up there and see the body.
We had one last chance to go see Austin and, before we had cremated. Matthew had a choice, he would come with us, he wanted to, and I think that, yeah, pretty hard. He seemed
home for 10 hours. Like, that's the first time he had just let it all out, and he was just screaming out of hell and crying and just talking. And we just were like, oh my God. And that's when we, called it.
What happened today, and when I'm protect, so it's actually what if you want to had violent outbursts, not around it. Yeah, they never like assaulted anybody. I said this in the last 6 to 8 weeks, and he's tilted. He tilted. Nothing.
I think he knows that he's failing and that he is eating away at the pressure. And he told me last night that he had dropped Spanish. And I said, is that been eating away at you that you haven't told me and just now telling me? And he said, yes. And I said, are you going to your other classes? Because we going to his class. And he says, I'm still over, in full force, even having dropped.
Today, go to 10-1 class. And we're going to do a 1-1 class. He went in the Sandy's first.
That's insane to me.
We hugged him last night, right?
Yes.
And said, we love you. Get your butt up, go to class, and we'll see you on Friday, because you get class to.
Tuesday, we told him.
That's our Tuesday, right? You guys are rushing out the whole day now.
I was down from 2:30 until. Is that right? Yes, we had home by 11:30. Yes. That was us.
Yeah, they, for some reason, he drove up in his car, left it abandoned on the side of the road. Well, stop. Left his car in the middle of the road.
In the middle of
In a lane, and a hero truck found it, and it was abandoned, so they just kind of. Get it out, it's kind of. And goes into one house, walks out to another house, which there are people on at the time. They told him, hey, we couldn't get out of our house. Started saying some things that they thought were unusual. He wouldn't leave, he walked up the stairs, walked upstairs to their house. They called the police, and that's when that whole incident was ended. God, he lost his mind. And I don't want to know every specific detail. This is kind of what they will tell you is stop your car in the middle of the road. We don't have a guy or. Yeah, we don't have a scan from or man, everybody. We know this, but we didn't have that. know exactly, you know, I think one thing. Shoulder, chest here, neck, transport, but you receive medical care, and that's the end of the internet, the clear up the viewers. And you're all supposed to be, they charge them, I recently read that several criminal suspects, they charge them several. So what has he said about the Artemis way? So he told us about the issue with Austin and the whole thing about the lights. And about the lights, he admitted to being there that night. And as far as your property in the backyard.
No, you don't remember mentioning anything about the living room, the body work? I don't recall mentioning that video.
He said that to us, and we thought that was unusual. Because he said that we have releases if we can, as far as us, police department. And I don't know if people may have or don't get out here, but he made a comment that, yeah, we're getting killed in the living room. Kind of picture, we can just leave it at that.
I'm pretty sure I told him that someone broke in the window and that they did tell him that they thought that someone broke in while people were gone. Because that's what the grandparents told the grandfather, that the authorities told them that they think somebody broke in while they were gone and were in there and surprised him because he said they were just sitting on the sofa. So I might have told him that. Yeah, I do remember telling him the window was broken in and that the grandfather thought someone was in there waiting.
And he said, don't cut the lights. And then that would do that picture with a cigarette. You could see the lights, catching the light out the corner of his eye. Which obviously were us fixation about the lights. We asked him a question there, like, hey, when you get your gun with the showcasing, you know, national showcasing in the house, he goes, probably not.
It's probably
It's
not.
probably not. Like, man, you don't seem very confident in that answer. We said something about, like, why do you think this would happen to some of these people? I get confident, like, so it seems like they did not go into specifics. We're very concerned. There were some camera footage of someone working around in their backyard. Some clothing that was served to what he was wearing today. We asked him about a specific thing. He goes, oh, I wasn't wearing that. He was wearing another thing. So he wasn't wearing the same clothes. Well, he goes, I was wearing that thing. And we go, well, which way was it? It was the North Face that he was wearing. That's what he was wearing today. So he kind of stays. And then we came a little upset when we got this kid in the house. You can tell he kind of, put his head down, took a long pause, stare off.
Yeah, I remember him when I told him that they had a child, and he said, were they okay? And I said, yes, they were okay. I said, but, they found him hiding. He was clearly upset. Because I'm looking at he's okay.
Larry's house.
Oh, dear God. He's just, it's for him, he lost his mind. He lost his mind to go into someone's house and then shrink, and you know that for sure.
That for sure.
Yes,
Yes, officer, shot.
he's crazy.
We haven't charged him with anything that was very specific about it. But we'll prepare you that it is possible to keep someone We have started some things. I just want to prepare you that. What we've done so far is what's the process to continue with Charles' process? That's, I mean, well, you have this, it's up to you, that's all. He's already had criminal charges in the city. Right. Yeah. Sure. My number is 404. 702. Both of them. That's number 404 787. Yeah. 667.
For the record, I'm stopping this video at 10:18:20. Detective, you see that both yourself and Detective Stannard exit the interview room. Is that the completion of the interview?
Yes, sir. I think we went back in one more time just to check on it.
But nothing of conversation as to this case, really. So I want to ask some questions about your tape.
It's been about an hour and about 15 minutes, get everyone stretched and get some water, and we'll come back at 2:50, about 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Thank you.
Sorry, Greg, we look at the video.
No problem. Are you all ready to proceed, or do you need more time? Right, we are back on the record in the state of Georgia's Matthew Scott Lanz, 22-00922. All parties are present. You may proceed, ADR.
Detective, so after watching that video, I'm kind of understand kind of the procedural of events. So on what day was the murder?
The bodies were found on the 18th, with the murder likely occurred the 17th into the 18th.
Now, after speaking with Teresa and Scott, when did they go to Athens?
They went to Athens the 18th, the day that the bodies were found.
Now, during that interview, around what time did Teresa make it to Athens?
She said she left about noon and arrived in Athens around 2:30 in the afternoon.
Now, what about Scott?
I don't recall an exact time, but Teresa was already there, and she said she called him at the airport, and the daughter picked him up at the airport and got him straight there.
Now, what were some of the big takeaways of the interview that you had with Teresa and Scott?
The first thing that struck me was the fact that Teresa did think to drive over 2 hours to Athens the same day, the 18th. And then the fact that she had asked her son if he had anything to do with the neighbors being murdered.
And was anything about the gun significant to you?
Yeah, first off, the fact that they decided they needed to take the gun from their son, as Mr. Scott said, he thought he might be suicidal or homicidal or somebody else. And then Matthew told them that he fired 5 or 6 rounds at the range, which was consistent with the number of rounds from the homicide scene.
Now, who ultimately took the gun from the defendant?
Scott said that he took it because Matthew was his mother, so he said he took the firearm and left the bullets there in the apartment.
And what did he do with the gun?
He took it, as far as all, he put it in his bedroom closet, which is when officers arrived at the house, he told them where to find it. They found the gun.
Now, I want to move on to some bubble swabs. At some point, did you obtain a search warrant for the defendant's DNA?
Yes, the detectives did, and I obtained search warrants, Fulton County search warrants for the defendant's DNA because he was at the Fulton County Jail on Rice Street.
Why were you interested in obtaining that DNA?
To compare with DNA collected on the scene, we were having the ATF process the shell casings for DNA, and then also when we recovered the firearm, we compared any DNA from the firearm.
Now, were you able to actually execute that search warrant?
We did, search warrant was obtained November the 30th, and we executed December the 1st, I believe around 11:40 hours,
And where did you execute it?
at the Fulton County Jail on the street.
Now, for the judge, how is that buccal swab examination conducted?
We use sterile cotton swabs, and we swab the insides of the cheeks. I usually use 2 swabs and swab the inside of the cheek to collect the DNA.
Now, I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibits 482 and 483. Do you recognize these exhibits?
Yes, they're the buccal swab kits from Matthew Scott Lanz.
And are these the physical swabs that you took from Matthew Scott Lanz at the jail that day?
Yes, they're sealed in the evidence package.
At this time, the state moves to enter what's marked as State's Exhibits 482 and 483 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
States 482 and 483 are admitted.
Now, while conducting that buccal swab examination, did you also take a photograph of the defendant?
Yes, we took a photograph of the defendant to show who we were collecting the buccal swabs from, and then we also audio recorded our interaction.
I'm now going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 659. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir, it's Matthew Lanz.
And is this the photograph you took during that buccal swab examination?
Yes, sir, it is.
At this time, the state moves to enter what's marked as State's Exhibit 659 into evidence.
Any objection? States 659 is admitted.
Now, you also mentioned an audio recording. Prior to your testimony, did you happen to listen to that audio recording prior to your testimony?
Yes, sir, I viewed it this morning.
And was that a copy of that interaction with Mr. Lanz at the jail that day?
Yes, sir.
At this time, the state moves to enter what's marked as State's Exhibit 467 into evidence.
Any objection?
I had the opportunity during the break to listen to that, so we don't have any objection.
Thank you. States 467 is admitted.
May I publish, Judge?
Yes.
And for the record, I am playing 467 starting at 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Search code? Yeah. And I'm going to leave you a copy of the search warrant so you can have it to get your turn. Okay. Well, it's a search warrant, says I'm going to get it. If you have any issues with that warrant, you'll pick it up your attorney, and then you can do motions. For your attorney. Okay. You're going to be able to keep that. All right? Finally, around here, as you open your mouth wide, that's all around the city. Thank you. Do one more. So this is a search warrant for my DNA? Correct. Like I said, you'll be able to keep a copy, and you'll be able to put it to your attorney, and he'll review it, if you've got any issues with it. You guys are with the GBI, right? With Cobb. Cobb. That's correct, sir. So there's an independent homicide department. Yes, each county. Yeah, it kind of varies from county to county, but we have our own. Okay, same thing. Do that again, and then we're done, and then we move out to that, okay? Open up platform. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your cooperation. You got any, questions to do that third one? Yes, we moved up that, right? Yeah, we're done. And I'll see if this copy can keep your own records. I'm sure I just need to file. My lawyer, I guess. Yes, he was just going to give you. Yes, give them that copy, and then we'll all have additional copies on it that you can get from the court to their copy, okay? That is what you need. Yeah.
For the record, I'm stopping 467 at 6 minutes and 30 seconds. The remainder of that audio, just you weaving it. I'm stopping the video at 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Detective, the remainder of that video, is that just you leaving the jail?
Yes, sir, it's just us leaving.
Now, the swabs that were taken, that have been admitted into evidence, were those sent off for forensic testing?
Yes, sir, I believe 2 were sent to the GBI and 2 were sent to the ATF.
Now, I want to show you what's already been admitted, State Exhibit 659. Now, is this Matthew Lanz, who you performed that buccal swabs on?
Yes, sir, and that's the picture I took.
Now, do you see Matthew Lanz in the courtroom today?
Yes, sir.
If you'll please point him out and describe an article of clothing.
He's sitting at the defense table in the green shirt.
Let the record reflect that the detective has identified the defendant.
The record will still reflect.
Now, were you also tasked with getting buccal swabs for Jacob Hicks?
Yes, sir.
How did you go about doing that?
We did that the same day. We went to their home and got consent from Jacob's grandfather, Timothy. And again, it's a swab of the inside of the cheek.
Now I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibits 657 and 658. Do you recognize them?
Yes, sir, it's the buccal swabs from Jacob Hicks.
At this time, the state moves to enter what's marked as State's Exhibits 657 and 658 into evidence.
Any objection? State 657 and 658 are admitted.
Now, with those swabs as well, were they also sent off for forensic testing?
Yes, sir.
Where?
Also 2 to the GBI and 2 to the ATF.
Nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Barry, you may proceed with your cross.
Thank you. Detective Jackson, did you, were you involved in the search of the home or go to the home on the 18th?
On Defile,
I'm sorry.
on Defile, or the one in Athens?
The next day, after the 18th.
The scene?
The scene?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay, and what was your job at the scene?
I assisted with processing the scene.
I'm sorry.
I assisted with processing the scene.
Process. Okay, and what did you do to process?
Look for evidence, look for shell casings, search the upstairs bedroom. I remember when the Canadian investigator got there, I assisted with moving Amber's body.
Did you find anything other than the shell casings that were of interest?
I believe we found a piece of a projectile, if I recall.
Okay. Did you collect that or somebody else?
I did not. The crime scene technician and the medical examiner's office collected those items.
You indicated that you had possession of a firearm at some point?
The firearm used in the crime?
Correct.
No, sir, not that I recall.
And you indicated that you got a Fulton County search warrant. Was that you or some other?
I was with Detective Stanton, but Detective Stanton was the affidavit. And in relation to the firearm, I did find the magazines at the apartment in Athens.
Okay. So that was going to be my next question. Did you go to Athens to be involved in that search there?
Yes, sir.
And what did you find in that search about?
In the computer desk drawer, I found 2 loaded magazines.
Okay, 2 loaded magazines, and were those 9mm magazines?
Yes, sir.
Did you find any loose bullets?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Was there anything else that you found of significance there in the search in Athens?
No, sir, not that I recall.
And were the magazines that you collected, were they sent to the ATF or the crime lab, whoever's going to do the testing on those?
I believe Detective Stanton sent them off, but I'm not sure. I do remember counting the rounds in them. One was fully loaded and one, I believe, had 12 rounds in it.
Okay. How many rounds does the clip normally hold?
17.
And did you do anything else in relation to this case other than what you testified to?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Is there any follow-up or redirect for Detective Jackson?
No, Judge.
May I be excused?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. Detective Jackson, excuse me, can you sit? State and call your next witness.
At this time, the state calls Todd Bill.
You can raise your right hand, please. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the court on the issue now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
You have a seat for me. And once seated, if you please state and spell your true and correct legal name in the record.
It's Todd Bill, last name is B as in boy, I-L-L-E.
You may proceed.
Good afternoon. If you'll please introduce yourself to the judge and explain how you are employed.
Bill, I'm the senior scientist for the DNA section at the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives Laboratory in Beltsville, Maryland.
Now, you say that you're a DNA scientist.
Thank you.
You said that you're a DNA scientist for the ATF. What does that mean?
So as a senior scientist, I act as in an advisory capacity to the Deputy Assistant Director of the Office of Science and Technology for the ATF laboratory. I also perform research. I coordinate research internally at the ATF lab. I also coordinate research with other government agencies and external agencies. And then, as necessary now, I do some casework analysis as well.
Now, it probably goes without saying, but is the ATF an accredited lab?
Yes.
Now, for the judge, can you describe your job responsibilities?
So as a senior scientist, like I said, I advise the Deputy Assistant Director of the OST. I also perform research on improving methods, research new methods that we could potentially implement, help with the evaluation of those methods, and then perform casework analysis.
Now, how long have you been with the ATF?
It's coming up on 20 years, since 2006.
And have you been specifically kind of in the DNA field with the ATF during that entire time?
Yes.
Prior to being with the ATF since 2006, did you have any other experience dealing with DNA?
Yes, I started my forensic career with the Indiana State Police Laboratory in 1991. I was actually hired in the trace unit, as before they had a DNA unit, but later on that year they decided that they wanted to start a DNA unit, and since my background was in biochemistry, I transferred over to the DNA unit, helped start that unit. I was there for 10 years doing DNA analysis, serology analysis. Eventually, when the DNA technical leader position became a thing, I became the DNA technical leader of the laboratory. DNA technical leader is responsible for all DNA technical, or all aspects of the DNA analysis at the laboratory. So developing the methods, validating those methods, implementing them, performing research. You oversee all the training of the analysts. You're also responsible to make sure you're following all the quality assurance guidelines and that we comply with all the accreditation and national quality assurance standards. I was a DNA technical leader there, eventually became supervisor, and then in 2001, I was hired by the Bodie Technology Group, which is a private DNA laboratory in Northern Virginia, as the assistant laboratory director. And there I oversaw casework analysis and other special projects. For instance, I led the team to develop the DNA extraction methods and process flow for the DNA identification of some of the skeletal remains from World Trade Center.
I'm sorry.
And then became the vice president of special projects there, involved doing different special projects with mass graves, mass humanitarian events. For instance, I went to Thailand after the tsunami in 2004-2005 to help with the identification there. Then in 2006, the ATF laboratory decided they wanted to have a DNA unit. They've had a laboratory, ATF's had a laboratory since late 1800s, but a lot of the DNA analysis up to that point wasn't really relevant to what they did. DNA analysis was typically body fluids such as blood, semen, saliva, but touch DNA analysis was becoming more prevalent at that time, and so that lent itself more to the type of evidence that we see at the ATF: firearms, explosive devices, and Molotov cocktails, things like that. So they hired me, as well as two other people. They hired me as the DNA technical leader to lead the team to try to get DNA analysis at the ATF laboratory. There I was a DNA technical leader until about 2 years ago, and then I got promoted to the senior scientist position.
Now, with that experience, did you have education that led you towards becoming a DNA analyst for the ATF?
Yes. My Bachelor of Science degree is in biochemistry from Purdue University, and then I also have a Master's of Science degree from Indiana University, Purdue University at Indianapolis.
And do you also continue your education through, I guess, CLEs or PowerPoints or anything to the sort?
Yes, so I went through my initial training in 1991, 1992 at the Indiana State Police Lab for general evidence handling. I went through general training at the Indiana State Police Lab for general evidence handling, and then DNA analysis, serology. Eventually, when I came to ATF, I wrote the training manual for there. Oversaw training for most of the analysts. But then, as you said, we do continuing education through our entire career. In addition to keeping up with the literature, I've attended probably over 80 DNA workshops, training seminars, things like that over the course of almost 35 years now.
Now, how much of your time is actually devoted to DNA typing research?
100%.
Now,
Sorry, 100%.
Now, for the judge, what is DNA?
So DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It's a substance in almost all the cells of your body. It's all the cells except for red blood cells. It contains the genetic information or the information that codes for most of your physical characteristics. Most of the DNA across all individuals is the same, which is why we all have 2 eyes, a nose, 2 ears, etc. But there are small differences in that DNA that we look at as forensic scientists. You can think of DNA as a set of encyclopedias on how to build a body. You get one set of encyclopedias from your mom, one set of encyclopedias from your dad at conception, and then your DNA is the same throughout your body. So if we're looking at blood, semen, saliva, all that genetic information is the same across all those fluids. It's even in the cells and the DNA that's left behind in a fingerprint in the body oils and sweat.
Now, what exactly is DNA typing or DNA analysis?
So it's a forensic.
I'm going to object at this point because he hasn't been tendered as an expert. So if he's going to go into questions about that, I think he needs to be tendered and then we have an opportunity to ask him questions.
Well, I'm laying the foundation to get him to an expert.
What was the question?
What exactly is DNA typing or DNA analysis?
I think you'd have to be an
I'll
expert to.
I'll sustain the objection since you're asking me specifically to go into explaining what the process is.
Okay. Have you been trained in DNA typing, DNA analysis?
Yes, sir.
In over the 35 years of being a senior DNA analyst, is that your job?
Yes.
And can you tell the court as to what that process is?
What DNA analysis is?
Yeah.
Yes.
And is that something that you've been doing for the last 35 years?
Yes.
So at this time, I would move to tender him as an expert in DNA analysis.
Did you want to, what do you?
We'll hear him on that at this point, Judge.
All right, you do it.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You indicated that at this point you are more in the research than you are actually doing the DNA testing. Would that be fair to say?
Well, this year's been kind of a big year, so I've been doing actually a lot of casework this year, but yeah, my job responsibilities span both research, casework, and advising the Deputy Assistant Director.
And what were you doing in 2021? What was your job in 2021?
I was the DNA technical leader.
Okay. And did you actually do the testing on this case?
So we do kind of a team approach. There was an analyst that did some of the extractions on this, and then I took it after the extraction on.
Okay, so you didn't actually do the testing, you looked at it afterwards?
I did some of the testing, yes. So he did, this individual did the extraction, then I did the, and we'll probably get into this later, but I did the quantitation, concentration, amplification, genetic analyzer analysis, and then the interpretation and comparison, along with the statistical calculations.
And
Sorry, as well as the statistical calculations. Statistical stats.
And who was the analyst that did the other portions of that investigation?
Mr. Clayton's, Adam Clayton's.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Adam Clayton's, he's another analyst in our laboratory.
What is your, you have a doctorate degree?
No, sir.
And what is your actual title?
Senior
Have an
scientist.
actual title other than,
Senior scientist of the DNA section.
How many times have you been declared an expert by the courts?
This is, I believe, my 90th time testifying both at the local, state, and federal level.
And have you been qualified here in Cobb County on any cases in the past?
I don't believe so, no, sir.
I don't think I have any further questions, Judge.
All right. Any other witness?
I don't have any objection to him being qualified.
Okay, so he is tendered and qualified as a DNA analyst expert.
Thank you, Judge. So, can you go through the process of DNA analysis?
So the goal of DNA analysis is to collect DNA or biological material from evidence from a crime scene, develop DNA profiles from that evidence, and then compare those profiles to the DNA profiles from relevant individuals, determine who could or couldn't be possible included, or who could or couldn't be possibly included as contributors to those DNA profiles, and then draw conclusions from there.
Now, can you explain the process for conducting DNA typing?
So the first step, and probably the most important step, is the DNA collection, collecting it at the scene, and then collecting the biological material from the evidence itself. This is usually some type of a swabbing collection method. Then we extract the DNA. This is a series of steps that separates the DNA from the cellular and environmental debris. Once we've extracted and purified the DNA, then we determine how much DNA we actually recovered from the evidence. We may have to concentrate the DNA down, but eventually we amplify the DNA. We use a process called polymerase chain reaction, or PCR. This is basically just a molecular Xerox machine that makes millions and millions of copies of specific regions of the DNA. If you go back to the analogy of thinking of DNA as a set of encyclopedias, it's like you're going back in and making specific copies of paragraphs within these sets of encyclopedias and just making millions and millions of copies of those just for visualization purposes. Once we've amplified it, we take those samples and run them through a genetic analyzer. Sorry. Thank you. Run it through. Run those samples through the genetic analyzer, which separates and detects the amplified product. This gives you basically a graphical representation, which is a series of peaks. We then do the interpretation, determine if the profiles are suitable for comparison purposes. If they are, then we perform the DNA analysis on the known DNA samples from relevant individuals, draw conclusions, make determinations of whether or not they could be possibly included or excluded as contributors to the DNA, and perform a statistical calculation to lend weight to those conclusions.
Now, once you kind of get that statistical, let me backtrack. How exactly are they read? Is it in that graph-like kind of representation when you get the results?
Yes, sir.
What types of results can you get once you get to that point?
So when we do our comparisons, we perform a statistical calculation using the software tools and Assistant. And we, the end product of that is a likelihood ratio. A likelihood ratio is really just a statistical calculation that compares the probability of an event under one or under two different hypotheses. And so for DNA specifically, we calculate a likelihood ratio based on the probability of seeing that DNA profile, given that the individual is a contributor, divided by the probability of seeing that DNA profile, given that the person is not a contributor. And so, depending on the magnitude of that likelihood ratio, that determines our conclusion. If you start kind of in the middle of a likelihood ratio of 1, that just means that neither side is favored. There's no, the evidence doesn't provide favorability for inclusion or exclusion. As you go to values less than 1, if it's just under 1, close to 1 but less than 1, there's limited support for exclusion, meaning there's some favorability for exclusion, but it's within a range where we have a higher risk of false exclusion. And then as you get further away from 1 all the way down to 0, we would just conclude that the person's excluded as being a possible contributor. Going the other way, if the value is just greater than 1, it's favoring the hypothesis that probably have seen the evidence given that the person is a contributor. But again, if it's just a little bit greater than 1, you're in that range where you have a higher risk of false inclusion. And so we would say there's limited support for inclusion. But then as you get greater than that and further away from 1, you have more and more support for probably have seen that evidence given that the person is included.
Now, when interpreting these results, do you all have population frequencies?
Yes.
Why are they important?
So we need population frequencies to calculate these statistics. There's different forms of each of these genetic markers we look at, so we need to know how frequently these different forms of these different alleles are found in the population in order to calculate the statistics.
Now, has your lab ever conducted testing that led to the exclusion of a suspect?
Yes.
Is DNA typing used in fields other than criminal cases?
Yes.
And under what circumstances would it be used?
DNA typing is used in medical diagnostic testing, paternity testing, ancestry testing, identification of victims from mass disasters or mass graves, etc.
Now, the process in which you do your DNA typing analysis, is that accepted throughout the scientific community?
Yes.
And is it deemed reliable?
Yes.
And do you know if other agencies use this method?
Yes.
Now, are there controls in place to ensure reliability for your testing?
Yes.
Can you describe them?
We have positive and negative controls that are used throughout the process. Positive controls, a known DNA sample, so we know what the results are supposed to be, and that just ensures that the work or that the DNA analysis was performed correctly throughout. We also have negative controls that have all the same reagents that are used for everything else, except we don't add DNA to those, and those are to detect any contamination.
Detect any.
Contamination.
Now, is there also proficiency testing?
Yes.
And can you explain that?
So proficiency tests, it's a program where we get a set of DNA samples from an external laboratory where we don't know what the results are. We perform our analysis, we submit our results back to that agency. They compare them to the expected results and let us know kind of how we did. Hopefully they match. We do this twice a year.
Is there also some form of quality assurance?
Yes.
Can you explain that?
So the quality assurance program is a program that ensures we produce quality products. This covers everything from laboratory security and the laboratory building all the way from how we hire people, the training of the people, the methods we use, all the way to how we report our analyses as well.
Now, could someone with the same knowledge, experience, and understanding of this process ensure that the testing is repeatable? Sorry, that was a bad question. Can someone with the same training and experience as you complete that same analysis and yield the same results?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a peer review process?
Yes.
Can you explain to the board what that is?
It's kind of two levels of review. Our laboratory as a whole, because we're accredited, we go through periodic audits from external agencies to make sure we comply with the standards for the accreditation. As a DNA unit specifically, we have to follow the National Quality Assurance Standards, and so we're audited by an external agency every 2 years. But then specifically for these analyses, every report that we put out goes through a technical review. This is a review that's conducted by another qualified DNA analyst, and they review our notes, our laboratory processes, all our worksheets, our results, our conclusions, and the report itself to make sure we didn't make any technical errors. And then after that's performed, we do an administrative review, which is by another individual. This individual makes sure that the report and the analyses were conducted following the laboratory's protocols and guidelines.
Now, I want to direct your attention to this case here. How did you come to work with this case?
Evidence and transmittal was submitted to our laboratory.
And what were you requested to do?
We were requested, our laboratories requested to perform DNA analysis on 3 9mm cartridge cases and a set of 2 swabs from a firearm, and then no DNA samples from 4 individuals.
Okay. Now, were you able to fulfill that request?
Yes.
Now, what items did you specifically analyze?
We looked at those, or we analyzed those 3 9mm cartridge cases, the 2 swabs, and then the 4 samples, no DNA samples from 4 individuals.
Now, I'm going to show you I'm going to show you what's already been admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 657. Do you recognize the labeling on this 657?
Yes.
And if you'll turn it over, what is this labeled as?
This is labeled as the no DNA sample from Jacob Hicks, the buccal swabs.
And is this the buccal swabs that were used in your analysis?
Yes.
And moving to State's Exhibit 482 that's already been admitted into evidence, do you recognize the labeling on that?
Yes.
And if you'll flip it over again, what is this exhibit?
These are labeled as the known DNA samples from Matthew Scott Lanz, buccal swabs.
Now, State's Exhibit 602, 603, 604, do you recognize the labeling on those?
Yes.
And what are these exhibits?
These are labeled as the 3 9mm fire cartridge cases.
And are these the cartridge casings that were swabbed for DNA?
Yes.
Now, once you had all of this information, or all of these exhibits, did you conduct your analysis?
Yes.
And once you conducted your analysis of those exhibits, did you reduce your findings to a report?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 671. You recognize State's Exhibit 671?
Yes, sir.
How do you recognize it?
I have my initials on each page and then the final page is signed.
Is this your report for this case?
Yes, sir.
At this time, the state moves to enter what's marked as State's Exhibit 671 into evidence.
Is there any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, we object to the document itself going out because it's a report, it's continuing testimony.
Well-
We can testify from it, certainly, but not to have it tendered to go out to the court.
Let me hear your response.
So that objection doesn't go towards the admissibility of the report itself. Now, his objection would be at a different time.
I was gonna say, you talking about the word seeing it or being admitted?
I mean, it can be admitted as part of the case, but it can't go back to the court because it's continuing testimony.
Okay, but your I was asking if there's an objection to its admittance. So,
Correct, only as to go into the court,
Okay.
be able to use that and read from it.
okay, so I don't think we're there yet. So I'm gonna overrule the objection as to, I'll admit it or objection. And then when we get to
Specific part.
evidence that the court will get to review, then we can address that. But I'm going to admit it over the objection.
Thank you, Judge. Any other Judge?
Yes.
All right. I'm now showing you the first page of State's Exhibit 671. What is this header up here?
That's just describing our laboratory.
And is that the ATF?
Yes.
All right. Now down here, below that to the right, is what information do we find here?
So that's the date the report was transmitted. It's our laboratory's case number, has the 2 submission numbers where evidence was submitted at 2 different times, has the reference number, which is our ATF agent's case number. Of course, that's different. Then there's the title of the actual investigation, and then for this type of exam, it's my specific exam, forensic biology.
Now, under reference title, what is the reference title that you have here?
Title is Verbena Drive Homicide.
Now, what information did you have when you actually received these items?
There's usually a report of investigation that we get along with the evidence that describes where the evidence came from. Potentially a little bit of background so we know what we're actually performing DNA analysis on.
And from where it came from, is that Verbena Drive homicide?
Yes.
Now, down below, we have listed exhibits. What are these 3 here?
So lab exhibit numbers 1, 2, and 3, as well as agency exhibit numbers 1, 2, and 3, are the 3 9mm cartridge cases.
And are those the 3 that you've already identified in your testimony?
Yes.
Now, I did forget to show you State's Exhibit 461 that's already been admitted into evidence. Do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes.
Now, is 461 the what you have listed here as number 4?
Yes.
And is that the swabs of the ZEV 9 OZ9?
That's how they were identified to us, yes.
Okay. Now, as we continue down in that section, what were the other items that were submitted to you?
So exhibits 5, 6, 7, and 8 are the 4 known DNA samples from the relevant individuals.
Now, you have already, for number 5 and number 6, were those the items that you've already identified here in court?
Yes.
Now, if you will please, let me ask this. As we proceed through your report, do you have some sort of a grid system indicating the results?
Yes, in order to try to simplify how we report results, we report it in a table fashion.
Now, I'm going to show you page 2 of 671. Now, for the court, can you walk through this grid so we can understand your findings?
Yes. So the left column is the exhibit number. So we just talked about exhibits 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the 4 known DNA samples. Going across there, we have the sub-exhibit number. So whenever we take a cutting of something, we create a sub-exhibit from that. So 5.1, 6.1, 7.1, 8.1. 5.1, 6.1, 7.1, and 8.1 are all the sub-exhibits from exhibits 5 through 8. 5.1, this is the cutting of the known DNA sample from Matthew Scott Lanz. 6.1 was the known DNA sample from Jacob Hicks. 7.1 was the known DNA sample from Steven Sinatra. And then 8.1 was the known DNA sample from Timothy Hicks. So you go across, the next column lists results. So here we just kind of summarize the DNA profile we saw. These were known DNA samples, so they should be single source. So in this case, for all 4 of these, we obtained a single source male DNA profile. The next column just lists whether or not that profile is suitable for comparison. Again, these are known DNA samples, so yes, they were all 4 were suitable for comparison. Going down to exhibit number 1, 2, 3, that's the combined sample of fired cartridge cases. That just fell under sub-exhibit 1.1. Those are the combined swabs from the 3 9mm cartridge cases. The result from that was a DNA profile consistent with 2 contributors. At least one of those contributors was male. and it was suitable for comparison. Going across, there's a whole section for conclusions, and you can see those 5 conclusions I listed before. In this case, found that there was support for inclusion for Jacob Hicks, Exhibit 6.1, support for inclusion as a contributor, possible contributor to this profile from the 3 fire cases.
And I'm going to kind of stop you there, and then we'll just talk about that finding, and we'll move on to the next one.
Okay.
So going to the exhibit number 1, 2, 3 column here, we see combined swabs from 3 9mm cartridge casings. Were swabs taken of those 3 casings?
Yes, it's a kind of a rinse and swab method that we developed specifically for fire cartridge cases. And we're kind of weighing, if we do each one individually, we expect very little amounts of DNA from fire cartridge cases. So since these all had the same markings, same caliber, the individual collected the DNA from all 3 of these as one sample.
So swab all 3 of them, and that was used in your comparison to these known DNA samples of Matthew Lanz, Jacob Hicks, Stephen Sinatra, and Timothy Hicks.
Correct.
All right. Now, did you follow your DNA analysis process while comparing the DNA profile from the 9mm cartridge cases to the known DNA profiles?
Yes.
Now, is that what we're finding as a result here in that second, or I guess the 4th box to the right?
So that result is determined whether or not the profile is suitable for comparison, and then the next columns are the actual results of the comparisons.
Now, for the results for the cartridge cases, were 2 types of profiles found?
It was determined to be a mixture of 2 individuals, yes.
All right. Now, as we move over, we see Jacob Hicks. What does it mean when Jacob Hicks is in this column?
So if you remember when we described the possible results we can get from our comparisons, one of those was support for inclusion. And so when we did this comparison to Mr. Hicks, to Jacob Hicks, then the likelihood ratio favored, gave a result that was much greater than 1, therefore it favored the probability of seeing this evidence given that Jacob Hicks was a contributor to the mixture.
Now, were you sent the DNA profile of Amber Hicks?
Yes. Or no, sorry, no, sir.
All right. Is it possible if it could be an Amber Hicks's DNA on these cartridge casings?
Yes, she could be the second individual, yes.
And over here on the far right, we haven't got to this column here. What's this column?
That's the result that favored exclusion. And in this case, these individuals were excluded as being possible contributors to the DNA profile.
So for the cartridge casings themselves, was Matthew Lanz, Stephen Sinatra, and Timothy Justin Hicks excluded from these 2 profiles that were found, given the population frequency?
Yes, I mean, it's a single profile, it's a mixture of 2 individuals, but yes, they were excluded as being contributors to that mixture.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about touch DNA. What is touch DNA?
So touch DNA, trace DNA, this is just a general reference to something different than what we typically thought of DNA analysis in the past, where it was blood and body fluids. This is being able to get a DNA profile from something that you've touched or it's been touched. It's DNA that's left behind in the body oils or sweat in your fingerprint, or doesn't have to be a fingerprint, something that's come in contact with you.
Now, if a child were to pick up a casing and play with it, is it possible for that child's DNA to be on a casing?
Yes.
Now, in your experience on discharge casings or cartridges, how successful are you in actually extracting DNA off of spent casings?
On a per sample basis, about 30% of the time, we get a DNA profile that's suitable for comparison from a sample from fire cartridge cases.
After a casing is actually fired, is that when a majority of the DNA could be destroyed?
There's a lot of factors that affect how much DNA we recover and the quality of that DNA. There's just the deposition itself is affected by the substrate, how much pressure, how the pressure is applied, but also the substrate itself. One of the biggest factors we found was DNA interacts with copper that's in brass and degrades DNA, which can have almost as big of a degradation effect as the firing process. So there's many different factors that can affect the amount of DNA we recover from a fire cartridge case.
Now, not only physically holding it, if a casing is ejected out of a firearm and lands on a carpet within a house occupied by residents, is it possible for their DNA to end up on that cartridge casing?
Is it possible? Potentially. But again, there's a lot of factors, more DNA transfers with direct contact, more contacts that happen, the further away you get from the direct contact, the less DNA that can be transferred. Depends how much DNA and biological materials on the carpet to begin with. If it falls in a corner that's not stepped on very often, or there's not much contact through skin, that would reduce the amount of DNA that can be transferred. If people don't walk in bare feet on the carpet, then there might not be much biological material there to begin with to transfer. Things transfer if they're wet more often than dried surfaces, so there's a lot of factors that would affect that.
Now, for your findings in this specific examination of the casings, were you able to, did you find a population frequency?
We performed our statistical calculation, yes.
Now, moving to page...
Our statistical calculation.
I'm moving to page 3 of State's Exhibit 671. Now, within this paragraph here, if you'll tell the court what your findings were as it relates to Jacob Hicks.
Do you mind if I read from the report?
If you'll read from the report.
So the statistical calculation number 1, which if you look at the table again, that's what was in that final column. We labeled each of the statistical calculations. First, we list what the conclusion was to begin with, and that was a DNA profile consistent with a mixture of 2 individuals was obtained from this sample, Exhibit 1.1, which again was the DNA collected from the 3 fire cartridge cases. We listed our assumptions, so in this case we're assuming that 2 individuals are assumed to have contributed to the DNA profile. And then we list the 2 different hypotheses. So again, when we're talking about the likelihood ratio, this is probability of seeing the evidence under one hypothesis, which in this case called the inclusionary hypothesis. The DNA originated from Jacob Hicks and an unrelated unknown individual, or the other hypothesis, in this case the exclusionary hypothesis. The DNA originated from 2 unrelated unknown individuals. Those are the assumptions in the hypotheses. So then the actual likelihood ratio, the DNA profile is at least 1 trillion times more likely if it originated from Jacob Hicks and an unrelated unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unrelated unknown individuals. Kind of putting this in a different context, the probability of an unrelated individual in the population who has not contributed DNA to this sample yielding this level of support is less than 1 in 1 trillion. And then F, the F statement, just based on this calculation, there is evidentiary support for the inclusion of Jacob Hicks as a possible contributor to the DNA profile obtained from Exhibit 1.1. And that last statement, we had one locus, one of the genetic markers we look at, SC33, had an artifact in it, so we did not use that in the calculation.
Now, I want to talk about the population frequency. 1 trillion is a big number. Is that the specific number, or do you have parameters as to your frequencies?
The actual likelihood ratio was bigger than that, but we capped it at 1 trillion because once you get to quadrillion, quintillion, sextillion, it becomes kind of meaningless. So we capped it at 1 trillion.
So it's more than the 1 trillion, but for your guidelines, you stop at 1 trillion.
Yes.
All right, now I'm going to move back to page 2 of this exhibit. Now, if you'll walk through this line in the grid for the judge.
Sorry, I didn't see which one.
All right, the last line here.
So here, again, we're talking about exhibit 4, and then the sub item from that, which is the cuttings of the swabs. These were the set of swabs from the pistol. And again, we've obtained a DNA profile consistent with a mixture of 2 individuals. At least one of those was male. We determined that the profile was suitable for comparison purposes. And then, in this case, Matthew Scott Lanz, there was support for inclusion of Matthew Scott Lanz as being a contributor to this mixture.
Now, and over here on the excluded, who do we see here?
So Jacob Hicks, Stephen Sinatra, and Timothy Hicks were all excluded as possible contributors to this DNA profile.
Now, were you sent the DNA profile of a Scott Lanz?
Just Matthew Scott Lanz, not Scott Lanz, yes.
Now, if Matthew Scott Lanz's father touched this gun, would their DNA match?
I don't understand that question. Would it match?
Let me,
Can you just rephrase what?
yeah, I'll rephrase my question. Sorry, Judge. Let me give an example. If both Matthew Scott Lanz and Scott Lanz touched this gun, or a gun, would you see a difference between the DNA profile?
We can distinguish between father and son, yes.
And so in the swab that was taken of the pistol compared to these DNA profiles, was Matthew Scott Lanz included?
There was support for his inclusion as a contributor to the DNA profile from the swabs of the firearm.
Now, with your results, it reads that there is another contributor to that mixture. Is that right?
Yes.
If the father had touched this gun, is it possible that his DNA is on the gun too?
It is possible, yes.
And not being sent his DNA profile, are you unable to tell us whether or not the father's DNA is on the gun?
Correct. Without being able to make that comparison, we can't determine.
Now, going to the population frequency of Matthew Lanz's population frequency of inclusion, if you'll tell the court your finding.
So again, I don't know if you want me to repeat these, but they're kind of the same. The initial statement, then A, B, and C are all the same as above because these were both 2-person mixtures. Inclusionary hypothesis, Matthew Scott Lanz, and inclusionary hypothesis was DNA originated from Matthew Scott Lanz and an unknown, unrelated individual. Exclusionary hypothesis is that the DNA originated from 2 unrelated, unknown individuals. The likelihood ratio, statement D, the DNA profile is at least 1 trillion times more likely if it originated from Matthew Scott Lanz and an unknown or unrelated, unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unrelated, unknown individuals. And again, putting this in a little bit different context, the probability of an unrelated individual in the population who has not contributed DNA to this sample yielding this level of support is less than 1 in 1 trillion. Based on this calculation, there's evidentiary support for the inclusion of Matthew Scott Lanz as a possible contributor to the DNA profile obtained from 4.1, which were the swabs of the firearm.
So now, just to go back to this, to page 1 of the exhibit. So those findings that you just gave to the court were that the swabs of the Zev OZ9 pistol had 2 profiles on them, one of which was Matthew Scott Lanz.
There was support for inclusion of him as being a positive contributor, yes.
Now, as you finalized your report, was it peer reviewed?
Yes, sir.
And was it approved through the peer review process?
Yes.
Nothing further, Judge.
Thank you. Barry, you can proceed with your cross.
Got a couple of questions. You received the firearm, correct, in your lab?
I actually don't know. I just know from what we received, for DNA analysis, we received the fire cartridge cases and the 2 swabs of the firearm. I don't know if we received the firearm itself at the laboratory in Maryland.
Does your lab, I know it's an ATF lab, do they process firearms for trace evidence? Do you know?
Yes.
They do. Okay. And do you know whether this firearm was ever given to the lab for any trace evidence?
I believe it went for the exam at our Atlanta laboratory. And so if we went there, they would treat it like any other piece of evidence where we try to maximally exploit any potential evidence on that, which includes fingerprints, trace fibers, and DNA.
And I was a little confused about this question. Would it be possible for Amber Hicks's DNA to be on the shell casings? You were not given her DNA sample, or were you?
We were not, therefore couldn't make that comparison.
So when the state asks you if it's possible, I guess anything's possible, but not be probable. If you didn't get it, there's no way to be able to know, right?
I can't say if it's probable or not probable. I wasn't given the sample to do the comparison.
Okay. All we know is that Jacob Hicks' DNA did show up on those shell casings.
There was support for inclusion of Jacob Hicks on those cartridge cases. I can't say definitively one way or the other.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Barry. Any other words? Is there any follow-up or redirect?
No, Judge.
And Mr. Bilby, excuse?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you, excuse.
Thank you, Judge.
Why don't we take a quick break, and if I could have the attorneys approach just 1 minute. would be 410. Yeah, 410.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Cross that bridge when they get to me, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, they don't like seeing the back of these guys' heads. Okay. You know, the judge and the, people understand it's more important. Oh, really?
I can put the petition in where
Yeah.
you want to go right here?
I want, they want to see the attorneys. So right now, the lot fee is the same. We're taking it, but.
I should be seeing that seal.
No, we don't, should.
Hopefully from you.
That's what we should be seeing.
Keeping everything in order.
Hey guys, I want to share something a little different. It's not related to court, but I just stumbled across some, there's an anti-Muslim protest in Dearborn, Michigan, down by Detroit. It's an all-Muslim ran city, from the mayor all the way down to the council, city council. I want you guys to see this. How these Muslims...
Violent attack, you can't leave your post. Personal...
This ain't this stupid.
Jesus Christ can tell you. The power of Jesus Christ can tell you.
It's going to be all out spiritual war here pretty soon. They're getting down there in Dearborn right now.
No, you can say whatever you want. Don't put your hands on him, though. Don't put your hands on nobody. Don't burn the Quran. That's it. Okay, if you're not going no, you can't. No, you can't. You can say whatever you want. We're holding bacon. Is this not America? These people here, especially when. Here. Especially when. Here. In America. Outer Street. This is why Dearborn, Michigan needs to be cleared and swiped of Muslims. They don't know how to behave. You take out. No, I don't want to be anywhere near Dearborn. I don't want to be. Get away from me. You Muslim sympathizers. Let's go pray. Let's go pray. Let's go pray in church. Let's go play in church. Is this not America? Can you not hold bacon in the street? Is this not, I got pepper spray all over me for no reason other than holding some bacon on the street. These people are animals. Who disagrees with that? This is why Dearborn, Michigan needs to be cleared out of Muslims, because they have no they're animals without any of our same rights and dignities as Americans, and God smite Dearborn.
That is haram!
Place that has turned into an extremist hotbed for jihadi terrorists. Just on October 31st, the FBI busted. Just on October 31st, the FBI busted. May the power of Christ compel you. Get out of here. We're going to pray. Please, anybody want? We can pray. Let's pray. It's other than this. Please pray. Other than this. Are you guys going to be arresting the people that assaulted all my people? Because we can identify them.
What happened to the sound?
I mean, you can Google Earth. No, I heard you. Hey, you're a colonizer. Hey, you're a colonizer. I know, but nobody's talking about it. I'm talking about it. I always you pedophile. Keep talking. We are. You like Donald Trump touching Bill Clinton's dick? You fucking pedophile.